Hey guys, Mrs. Fox here with part 3 of your 7.1 flipped classroom on the scientific revolution. This is part 3, so if you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, then stop! Go watch that stuff and join me when you're ready. We're almost there. We didn't quite finish with video 2, so we're going to wrap it up here with our third part. All right, so we were talking about the microscope. Again, remember Zacharias Janssen invented the microscope in 1590. Didn't take long after that for people to start making all sorts of discoveries from things you could see using a microscope to assist you, including Anton van Leeuwenhoek, who discovers bacteria, okay? So keep that in mind. Draw a line, draw a line, draw a line underneath everything you just wrote. And here we go, number 9, the thermometer. You guys have all seen thermometers. We use thermometers to take our temperature, and you're all aware that there's thermometers that take the temperature outside. So in case this is news to anyone, a thermometer measures temperature changes, okay? This is another thing that Galileo invented. So again, Galileo, one of the most brilliant scientific minds of the scientific revolution time period, all right? He uses the Celsius method, not very popular here in the United States. A while later, another guy named Fahrenheit, right? Sound familiar? Fahrenheit develops the Fahrenheit system of temperature. Okay, so that's where thermometer comes from, originally Galileo, and it takes temperature and measures temperature changes, right? So give yourself a left-hand side question, draw a line underneath everything you just wrote all the way across your page. Number 10, the barometer. The barometer is invented in the mid-1600s, and it's used to measure air pressure. Air pressure matters in a lot of different things. One of the applications of wanting to know air pressure would be the weather. If you guys have ever been down south during summertime, or like in Florida, which is down south, in the summertime, you know, like sometimes you walk out your door and you can like feel the air because it feels thicker, right? Like sometimes it happens right before a storm is coming, and you know, you walk out into that kind of air and you just feel like you can kind of push it out of your way almost. It's like thick and it makes you sweat. You're more likely to start sweating and stuff because the air is thick. That has to do with air pressure. Other places the air is much thinner, probably where you're sitting right now. It's not something you think about. You don't think like, I can feel air on my face, right? It's just around in the room. So air pressure is measured by a barometer, which tells you, you know, how thick or thin the air is, which matters for things like pressure and stuff, like tire pressure on cars and bicycle tires. It matters for things like you know, plane safety, and that the air pressure is equalized in the air of the plane, and different things like that. So the barometer stems all those other inventions with air pressure to end up being possible. So it measures air pressure. Draw a line underneath everything you just wrote all the way across your page. Okay, number 11, bacon and Descartes. No, not bacon like you eat. I know, it's disappointing. You wish it was some nice crispy chewy bacon, but it's not. Bacon is a person, and no, he didn't invent bacon. That also would have been super cool, but not true. Okay, Bacon and Descartes, they're scientists who live in the 1600s, okay, and they kind of tag team in scientific thinking, like observation and experimentation being important. Remember, Galileo introduced that concept. Newton practiced that concept. This was a new thing at the time. Well, Descartes says reason is important. Hey, you shouldn't just believe something because somebody says so, right? So Descartes, totally a humanist, right? He's saying you need to think that sucker through. Whatever somebody told you, you need to think about that. You should doubt everything until somebody can prove it to you through reason. Okay, so Descartes is big on reason, that you need to question things until it can be proven. Bacon is another guy that says experimentation is important as well. Bacon says, yes, Descartes, you are correct. Reason is good. We should use reason. We should want things to be explained to us and be proven to us. But Bacon goes the next step further and says, but it shouldn't just be through words necessarily that someone is reasoning you into the conclusion that they're correct. It should be through experimentation. You should be able to physically show us in a tangible way that you are correct about something. All right, so that's Bacon and Descartes. Descartes says reason is important, use it, question everything until you can be proven through reason something's right. And Bacon says, yes, yes, well and good, that's true, except take it a step further. You shouldn't believe something until experimentation helps show that that reasoning is correct. Okay, you need to be able to produce an actual result by having an experiment. All right, so that's number 11, Bacon and Descartes. Draw a line underneath everything you just wrote and write down a left-hand side question. Number 12, scientific method, guys. Bacon comes up with the scientific method because remember Bacon's saying, yeah, reason's good, Descartes, that's awesome, but we also need experimentation. So what are the rules of having an experiment? Like every person on the planet should be able to conduct a like experiment, the same experiment, and get the same results. Well, how do we ensure that? There has to be steps in place to make sure everybody's going about it the same way so that we can get the same results if we try to duplicate an experiment. So he's the guy that came up with the scientific method. Yes, something you guys have been taught and have learned about since, way back when you were smaller. Okay, so Bacon is the dude that invents it. It's changed over time. Okay, his version of the scientific method has 4 steps in it. Today's, depending on the model you look at, has 8 or more steps. Okay, so they've modified it with better technology and education and things as time has gone on. But the 4 steps he had in his original one are still 4 of the steps you'll find in the expanded version of scientific methods today. Okay, so it's still in use, modified, but still in use hundreds of years later by us. All right, so 1, observe and describe an object. You have to observe an object to know anything about it, okay? 2, you need to form a hypothesis, which remember is an educated guess about whatever you think your outcome's gonna be. 3, test your hypothesis in an experiment. And 4, use the results of the experiment to actually draw a conclusion that you can show people or write about in a paper, that sort of thing. Those 4 steps still used today, even though the method now has been expanded. All right, so Bacon comes up with the scientific method. Make sure you have it down, super duper highlighter colors going in action there. All right, draw a line underneath everything you just wrote all the way across your page. Here's another look at that same 4 steps just in a cycle, right? You have a theory, you make a prediction, you do an experiment, okay? And through observation, you figure out if your theory was correct. You could start that at any point. You have an observation, you create a theory, you make a prediction, you do the experiment, and so on, around and around it goes. All right, last slide, guys, last slide. Impact of the scientific rationalism movement, okay? So the scientific revolution can also be called the scientific rationalism movement. They want to be rational using science to come up with answers, okay? Scientific rationalism, those ideas of Descartes and Bacon. You should have reason, you should use reason to have things proven to you, and you should use experimentation, okay? Go past just the reasoning and actually have tangible proof through an experiment that something is correct. All right. So what this leads to, the whole scientific movement, the scientific revolution leads to a decrease in the Catholic Church's power, or really any religion's power, because some people will turn to science as an answer, saying, no, faith must not be right. I can't see faith. I can't touch faith. I can't prove faith. That's kind of the definition of faith, right? You can't see it or touch it or prove it, all right? It must be wrong. Science holds the answers because science is tangible and you can see it and you can experiment on it and you can prove things. And so the church, Catholic Church and other churches will lose followers over this as some people become atheists or agnostics, which means they question everything, okay, because they want to believe in science. Other people will try to merge the two. You can have faith, you can be a religious person and still think science has value and science can answer questions, both could be true. So there are those people that said you can have both. All right. And other people will totally dismiss everything science and only want to believe the church. So it kind of goes all over the spectrum. But enough people leave the church that it's going to cause the church's power, which has been declining already over all the other things we've talked about the last couple units, to continue to decline even more. Does that mean it disappears? Heck no. Does that mean they're not still powerful? No, they're still powerful. Does that mean that nobody's religious anymore? No, there's still religion. It's just that, slowly their power does start to go down as some people look for answers outside of the church. They look to science for answers instead. All right. This is not a far jump to people going, hey, wait a minute. If the church was wrong about things science and things educational, maybe the church is wrong about government and how government is handled too. Okay, this was not a far stretch. People have kind of become unhappy in a lot of the kingdoms and countries and monarchies in the world at this point in time. And they start thinking, maybe there's something to this stuff that, all these old ideas we've been practicing for a long time maybe are outdated or not correct. And so it's not going to be a far jump from saying scientific revolution, okay, to government revolution. That's not going to be a big jump for people to make as they begin to maybe look for new forms of government, just like they looked for new answers about the world around them. All right, that's it. Make sure you got everything down. Make sure you highlighted everything. You got your left-hand side questions. You need a nice detailed summary, you guys, that outlines all of the main points from our PowerPoint. Don't forget to turn that in, hit submit if it's through Google Classroom, okay, when you're done with that summary. And I'll see you next time, all right? Have a great day.